Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 22nd of October, and joining me on this edition, as always, Steve Withers.
You called his niece a whore.
Ed Selley.
Swinging priest.
And Mark Botwright.
And we're still one short.
Welcome back to the podcast. Not sure what I'm going to talk about in this section. I haven't given it any thought, really. It's been such a busy week. I think it's been such a busy week for everybody. It's in our industry. This is when everything gets really, really busy. So there's lots coming up. 4K projectors, lots of them coming around now. Native 4K projectors. We've got the Sonys and the JVCs coming up. Lots of excitement around them. The big show happens in January. That's always going to be a big news event. So yeah, there's lots going on.
No, I'm winding down now for Christmas.
You're winding down now?
I thought I'd start early.
It's all right for some, isn't it?
Ed, what have you been up to?
I have been doing a heady combination of lots and lots of Bluetooth loudspeakers and a record player, just to keep my hand in.
That wasn't what I was asking. How did you get on with it, curry?
Oh, curry. Right, well, I ate it. I didn't need to cut it with soup. I mean, I don't know, but Mark, you ate it with rice, I take it. You didn't just eat it out of the tub.
Oh, yeah, no, I ate it with rice.
Fine, okay. So I was just making sure that we were establishing a baseline of idiocy here. It's unpleasant. I mean, there's no other way of dressing it up. Clearly,
well, it is an Iceland product to start with, so it's not the height of.
Some of the Iceland curries are perfectly edible. I mean, don't ask too much about what's in them, but they're fine enough to eat. This one, clearly, they've looked at what's the hottest Scoville rating of anything else in the microwave curry category, and just increase beyond that. So the result is that when you go to an Indian restaurant, a good Indian restaurant, and you have a viciously hot curry, the way it's done, you can still taste the other things in there. It's quite clever how they do it. And that's where, your sort of dopamine hit comes from. This is just basically trying to eat a blow lamp. It's not in any way, shape or form entertaining. But I felt compelled to do it. So I did it. I ate it. And the only minor saving grace is that actually the next day wasn't too bad, without going into unnecessary detail. So I think I got lucky. I'm not falling over myself to order another one.
I like the fact that when you tweeted about that, Iceland actually came back to you on that one. That was really quite entertaining. Because
Iceland are doing they're not sponsoring this podcast, but they have various offers where you can get multi-buys on the curries, and I suggested that actually the Reaper one would be a better multi-buy with some Andrex and Domestos, and they noted that, and hopefully the joined up thinking in the marketing department will allow for that particular multi-buy to be done at a later date.
Okay, good stuff. Excellent. Well, this week I've been mainly reviewing the Philips TV. I am spending my Friday night filming it and then swapping over to the F9. I've had them running side by side. We'll go into that in a bit more detail in the next week's podcast. We'll save that detail. And I've also been laying a bathroom floor. So
is that a euphemism?
No.
Is that for you or somebody else? Are you branching out?
No, that's for me. No, that was for me. I haven't got time
just imagine turning up in the Mustang with a ladder hanging on the back of it.
Laying some bathroom tiles and calibrating your TV at the same time.
Yeah. No, I don't do any of that. I haven't got time to do that. No, it's for myself. And I've got to say, I bought these tiles from B&M for £9 a box, and they've been absolutely fantastic. They're stick-down things, and they never work, but these ones
you buy those tiles about a year ago?
Maybe.
I remember you telling me about those tiles. That was a long time ago, at least the beginning of this year. Possibly last.
Never forget to saving.
You're probably right on that one, Steve. I've just gotten round to doing that. But time's precious, and it's. But actually, they've been really, really good. They're the type that you could cut with scissors as well. I mean, like big scissors. So you didn't have to faff around with Stanley knives and stuff to get them to fit round door frames and that kind of thing. So
where's
really,
the fun
really
in
good.
that?
I like ease of use, but they've been really, really good.
If you're playing about with viciously sharp blades is where it's at. So
yeah, and my record of DIY is not good. So that's what I've been doing. Mark, what have you been up to? Oh, I've been doing a bit of running as well, but we'll come back to that at some point. Mark?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're on exercise, I did my first krav maga lesson.
Oh, excellent.
Yes. It's interesting because it's going to be like a 23-week course, and I normally assume that you would kind of work up to various things, but in lesson 1, we're already learning kind of knee strikes to the groin and throwing rubber knives at each other. So
That actually sounds like good. That sounds
Next
like
week
good
it's
fun.
head snaps and back.
Yeah,
punches in the back of the
apparently for Christmas we're getting the plastic guns out.
Awesome.
Nice and festive.
Do you finish the whole course with the 5-finger death punch?
Yeah, hopefully.
Is Christmas week dead? Die Hard week, is it? Is that where you do your John McClane?
Oh yes.
So you got to bring your dirty vest in.
And how to keep going in the event of losing your shoes? Well, I mean, it all sounds jolly exciting. But 23 weeks, blimey, that's a lot of Krav Maga.
The lesson? How long does it last? An hour or 2 hours?
Yeah, it's just an hour.
3 hours of training.
But it's at the local uni, so obviously
Practice
they're doing it to kind of help students and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it's a long course, but yeah, very good thus far.
Covered in lots of bruises, Mark?
Yeah, do they make you eat rice with chopsticks at the end of it?
No, we're not quite at that level.
Just to wax the car, wax on, wax off.
No, that's karate.
It's all just kind of hitting pads and stuff like that, and palm strikes and that kind of thing. I've not quite reached the kind of Remo unarmed and dangerous level yet, but I'm getting there.
Give it time.
I've got to say, I used to enjoy self-defense stuff because it's a good excuse to get your anger out on a pad. There's nothing like taking your anger out on a pad.
I'll take your word for it.
That's how I used to approach rugby, basically. Every Saturday was my chance to take all my aggression out on some poor sod on the pitch.
I would have naturally assumed if you were on the pitch, everyone else was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, they were, yeah.
Or using you as the ball.
They were thinking the same thing.
Throw the withers.
Frequently came off the pitch with black eyes.
That's the thing with using Stewie Griffin as your avatar. Everybody now thinks your head's that shape, Steve.
But I guess I don't know. Maybe this is a part of my life that's missing. I just don't seem to have the levels of inner rage required to go off and hit pads or do the things like that. Every now and again, I get in the car and give it a damn good Basil Fawlty style birching, but that's about it.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think the kind of Venn diagram between vinyl aficionados and inner rage, there's a minimal crossover point.
It depends. I can remember after I'd removed the stylus of a £540 cartridge by snagging it with a jumper. I was quite angry at that point. I won't lie. And until I left my last, I had that cartridge just sat with the others without its stylus to remind me to be careful. But yeah, that was. I remember being very angry at that point. But no, you're probably right. It's not. It's relatively chill. Sorry, I'm just having a cup of coffee and looking at Twitter. As you were.
Right. Okay. So that's what the team been up to this week. Current competitions. Mark, what can we win?
Right. Yes, you can win a copy of The Bombing on DVD, and that one closes on the 23rd of October. We've also got a copy of Hereditary on Blu-ray, and you've got until the 24th of October for that. We've also got a copy of Revenge on Blu-ray, and you've got till the 29th of October for that. And finally, we've got the PlayStation 4 bundle with a PlayStation 4 1TB console, a copy of FIFA 19, a DualShock 4 controller, and a Sony PlayStation wireless stereo headset. And that competition is courtesy of Smith's Toys Superstore, and that one closes on Halloween, 31st of October.
Excellent, good stuff. And are these competitions open to eligible AVForum members resident in the UK?
Yeah, they are.
They are only open to eligible members.
Excellent, good stuff. Any previous competition winners?
None.
Good stuff.
Can I just say, before we just whilst it's semi-relevant, obviously we've got our AVForums, the review of FIFA. Is it 18 or 19? I can't remember which one. That's how good.
19.
I just wanted to give a plug. What an enjoyable review, and actually, most of the games review stuff that I don't know how to pronounce Luke's surname, but could he just stop showing us up by being quite good, and churning out some quite artfully crafted sentences in all of his stuff?
Well, it's interesting that you bring this up. This is totally unplanned, by the way. It's going to sound like we're segueing into something, but it's totally unplanned. Luke's been doing a lot of games reviews. He's got quite a few coming up. The problem we've always had with games reviews, and obviously Mark used to write a lot of games reviews for us as well, is actually getting the games nice and early and being able to put the reviews up quickly, because obviously people want to know what the gameplay is like, so you have to play the game before you can actually write the review. we're actually looking at doing that a little bit differently with the reviews going forward. So we're actually going to do a 3-phase review now going forward with the games reviews. So when a game is announced, then obviously it'll go up as a preview that this game is announced, this is what you can expect, blah, blah, blah. Then once Luke gets the game and he's had it for 4 or 5 hours and had a good playthrough, you'll get his initial thoughts on the game. And then after about 4 or 5 days, maybe 7 days if it's a long game, you'll get the final verdict as well, and if it's worth playing and how long it took to complete and all that kind of thing. So yes, he's doing a lot of work at the minute, and we're changing it up a little bit so they become more relevant games-wise. Because it's all about being out there nice and quickly and letting people know. No,
that's a very good idea. Particularly with anything with an online element. We used to do a few of those with certain online games as just a rolling review. Because the thing is that you can't properly test something until like the servers have been hit. For something like FIFA 19, you don't really know how it's going to hold up. You assume it's going to be fine. But with a lot of online games, you can get a review which is done in kind of test scenario kind of stages. And then when it finally comes out, all of a sudden you've got crashes, you've got bugs, you've got things that weren't mentioned in the review because you were assured that they were going to be ironed out prior to release. And also you've got to put in so much time into them that for a lot of games, it's that initial reaction. If you're trying to just power through it in kind of a week and you've got a 40 to 60 hour game, you're going to end up fatigued by it. So it works out a lot better if you can give people just a slightly longer scale review on it.
Yeah, that's the idea. So hopefully that'll work. And hopefully we might get Luke on the podcast coming up for the end of the year, get his views on what kind of year it's been in terms of games and gaming and so on. So yeah, thanks for bringing up that, Ed. Completely unplanned, but it sounded like it was. So thank you very much. We actually sounded a little bit professional there.
Downhill all the way from there.
Yeah, it is,
yep.
Unfortunately. You switch off now. Hardware news is next. Okay, so kicking off with hardware news, I'm going to do the Philips and Sony reviews next week. So this week, we still got a TV review. It's quite an interesting TV. It's from Hisense. It's one of the lower down models, and we have had comments on the forums in the past few weeks asking us to look at this area of the market, the budget area of the market, smaller screen sizes, smaller price tags. Is there quality out there? Well, Steve, you've been looking at the Hisense A6200 LED TV. What's the price tag on this one?
The 50-inch that I reviewed, you can get for £329.
Right. Is it any good?
I'll tell you what, it really shocked me. Because, in fairness to Hisense, they've been making some solid budget TVs, very competitively priced, very well made. And this ticks all those boxes. But when I measured it, it had out-of-the-box errors less than 2. Across the board. Most of it was less than 1.
Yeah. It
was a staggeringly accurate TV out of the box, and I was gobsmacked because obviously when you're talking about a TV that's only costing £329, you are not going to get it calibrated. You're not going to spend £200-300 getting it calibrated because that would just be crazy at that price point. So you want the TV to be as accurate as possible out of the box, and this was amazing. And it was just brand new. It wasn't like they hadn't done anything to it. It came off the back of a lorry. You've seen the kind of things they used to deliver stuff. Big bloke and a big Arctic turned up.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a prime hand-picked sample here.
Not here. It was straight off the back of an Arctic, brand new box, unopened. Straight out, opened it out, ran it in, put the meter on it, and I honestly, my jaw hit the floor when I saw those measurements. I thought, bloody hell! And you look at when you see the review go up. You can look at the graphs and see the grayscale, very accurate, really good performance from the camera as well. Color accuracy also very good, not perfect, but very good. Now, I can make it better with the calibration, but the reality is you're almost certainly not going to see any visible difference between the two. So that's awesome. That's the kind of thing you want to see.
For 400 quid, that's astonishing. The sad thing is here that people that buy 400 quid TVs shove it in vivid mode.
It is unfortunate that's probably the case. It doesn't ship in that mode, but that's what they're probably going to end up doing, or leaving it in the shipping mode, which is what's it called, standard. But if you just put this TV into the cinema mode, there's a cinema day and cinema night, but both of them are basically the same, but you just change the brightness levels, but the backlight levels, sorry, should I say. But you go into cinema mode and you're looking at a pretty accurate picture, and that's great to see. And it means if someone is on a tight budget, but they want a TV that can deliver them with a reasonably accurate picture, or very accurate, let's be honest, very accurate picture in this case, then this is definitely worth looking at. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, what's the catch? There's always a catch. It claims to be an HDR TV. It can accept an HDR signal, but in reality, this is not an HDR TV in any sense of the word. Peak brightness is no higher than 200 nits. The color gamut is basically Rec. 709. So it's not going to give you it's an 8-bit plus 2-bit dither panel. It's not going to give you the full HDR experience or even close to it. It's going to tone map it down to its capabilities. As such, it clips like buggery when it gets to particularly if you put on something like the scene from Pam, which is a 4000 nit grade, the sun setting behind the mountains.
I take it it's only doing one tone map, then it's not doing 1000 and a separate one for 4000.
No, it isn't.
So it's just doing one. Yeah.
It's as I describe it in the review, it's essentially it's an HDR TV in name only. In reality, you're not going to be getting any of the, you're not going to be getting the wide color space. You're not going to be getting the peak highlights. You're not even getting particularly good tone mapping. You're not getting full 10-bit, although I don't think it's between 8-bit and 10-bit anyway. But you're not getting any of that. But at 329 quid, you can't expect everything.
No.
But if you want a good, and it's got a direct LED backlight, by the way. There's no local dimming, but it's a direct LED backlight, so you've got a nice even backlight. If you're looking for a quality SDR TV with a bit of HDR on the side, it can accept the signal at least, and it is a 4K panel, of course, so you've got that benefit. But if you want some quality SDR images, this TV really surprised me and shocked me, in fact, if I'm being honest. And it's also got a basic but effective smart platform, and it includes most of the video streaming services, everything but Now TV. So, and they again, with the video streaming, you got 4K and HDR to a degree off of Netflix and Amazon. You've also got 4K and HLG support for the BBC iPlayer app. So you're getting a pretty solid package. And again, let me just repeat this: 329 quid. That is crazy money.
So just so we get this right for the HDR stuff, so people understand exactly. You mentioned Pan, it was done at 4000. It's obviously if it's only tone mapping for 1000, it's going to clip a lot of the highlights in there. What was it like with actual 1000 nit content? Was it?
Yeah, it was better with that in the sense it didn't clip as much. But like I say, it's going to tone map it down to what it can do. So really, you're not going to get the peak highlights that you would get from a TV that was brighter. You're not getting the wide color gamut benefits. So you're getting a watchable image. It looks fine, but obviously you're not going to be getting the full benefits of HDR. So you need to bear that in mind. But I think at that price point, you have to be realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the TVs we see at the lower end of the price scale that claim to be HDR are very limited in terms of their capabilities, even from the major brands. So
yeah. Well, I mean, the only one I've looked at that price point this year has been the Cello, and it sounds like it absolutely murders the Cello in terms of quality.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you're looking for something that's going to give you an accurate image, I mean, I've tested TVs that are 10 times the price that don't deliver an image that accurate out of the box. So, congratulations to Hisense on being able to do that. And it's interesting because they clearly have worked hard at trying to deliver an accurate image with when it comes to SDR. So if you look, in terms of the grayscale, the gamma, and the color tracking for Rec. 709, very good. And it's interesting that they've really worked hard at doing that, because if you look at the U9A that I reviewed, it's got much wider color space, 80% of Rec. 2020, but they're struggling at the moment to deal with that wide color space and deliver an accurate image when it comes to HDR. But certainly at the SDR end of the scale, they've really nailed it. They've done some. I mean, over the last couple of years, they've really improved that area of their performance. And I got to say, like I say, I was genuinely impressed, if not shocked.
Okay, good stuff. So that TV is the A6200. Is that right?
A6200. I should point out that there will be just in time for Black Friday, Hisense are planning to release the A6100, which is essentially exactly the same TV, but it doesn't have a dual band Wi-Fi. It's got single band Wi-Fi built in, but otherwise I believe it's basically the same television. That's going to be going for ridiculous money, absolutely ridiculous money. I don't know exact pricing, but it's going to be insanely cheap.
Well, if bear that in mind. 52-inch 6200 is what, 329? Just
to run through the pricing and the screen sizes, this is for the A6200, but for the A6200 you can get, there's a 43-inch that costs it's 329 for the 43-inch. The 50-inch is 379, my mistake. 379 for the 50-inch. 55-inch is 479, and the 65-inch is 699.
That is still, let's face it, pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And
and the 6100 will be less than that.
Sub £400 for a good, a capable 4K television is.
Yeah,
it's quite mad.
The 6100 is going to be 329, Steve.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I was
the
thinking
65-inch is going to be 579.
Yeah, so there you go. 6200 with dual band Wi-Fi, 379 for Black Friday, and it's limited stock, so get it quick. But
did you test the input lag, or did I have to say I wandered off?
I did test the input lag, and it's 24 milliseconds. There's no
so
game
in other
mode.
words,
There's no cheat mode, but you don't need one.
As a cheap gaming panel.
Blinder. Absolutely blind.
Well, for those of us who, just in case you were momentarily worried about caning your B7 or B8, you could just sort of have one of these, provided you have the room for it to live somewhere else.
No doubt that I will not see a better value television this year than this. Absolutely no doubt about that.
I'm just going through the Hisense official rumours for Black Friday. 75-inch A6600. £1,199. 75-inch TV. 4K.
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
If you've got a limited budget and you're looking for some bargains come Black Friday, check out Hisense. Without a doubt, there's going to be some absolutely cracking deals coming up. And like I say, I think, even though they'll be incredibly cheap, you're going to be getting a solid level of performance.
Yeah. Well, you took that one off the back of the lorry. It was absolutely packed, brand new, had never been handled before, so it wasn't a golden sample or anything like that to try and, hype it up for Black Friday or anything. It was an actual, brand new TV out of the box, and if it's measuring like that, and that's
I can't guarantee that every single sample is going to be that, because obviously I'm basing it on a sample of one.
But even if it's consistent,
Yep.
Given 10% either way, it's still better than a lot of more expensive TVs.
Oh God, yeah, I've tested TVs that have, like I say, 10 times the price that have had far worse out of the box performance.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the Hisense A6200 LED TV, and like Steve says, look out for the Black Friday stuff. Some of the prices are going to be absolutely stupid, but you'll have to be quick. Right, so let's change pace a little bit. Let's go to Ed, put our dinner jackets on, and get the
pipe slippers.
Yeah, pipe and slippers. Sit back into the world of hi-fi. What are you going to tell us all about this week?
Actually, you can all bite me because, frankly, I've been looking at something which is modern, sophisticated, and extremely good value. So, frankly, all your derisory comments are totally ill-founded. I've been looking at the new all-in-one MusicCast speakers from Yamaha, which are designed to be if you like, the entry point for the biblical range of MusicCast product. They are imaginatively titled the MusicCast 20 and the MusicCast 50, and they are extraordinarily well specified. You get network audio, obviously, up to and including 24192 if you suddenly feel the urge to do that. They have got support on board for Tidal, Qobuz, Deezer, Spotify connectors in there, Napster, and Duke. I've never used Duke, but it's there as well. Internet radio, and if you have got an Amazon wiretap, it's compatible with those as well. So that's a fairly hefty specification. And then obviously, as part of MusicCast, you can use them as rear speakers, as with a sound bar that I believe Steve will be looking at in the not too distant future.
Yeah, there's a couple of sound bars. There's the Bar 400 and the Bar 40, both of which are MusicCast, and both of which you can use either the 20s or the 50s as rear speakers with.
And then obviously if you want full house multi-room, you can have full house multi-room, but you can have it using the bewildering array of Yamaha's products. So you could have, say you're still a fully paid up home cinema enthusiast and you've got a dedicated room, you could have the Yamaha processor and power amp, which is all MusicCast compatible, and they can things like that can send what they're doing at the time off to the other MusicCast speakers. And then there's stereo receivers. I mean, I tested the 803 not that long ago. It did everything, most of it very, very well. And then all the way down to, as I say, these compact products. Then there's powered speakers. Actually, no, they aren't powered speakers. They're genuinely active speakers. It's probably the single largest one brand family of multi-room products going. It's so large that in some ways I think that counts against it, because people find it quite intimidating because there's simply so much stuff to choose from. But it's really very clever indeed. The speakers themselves, the 20 and the 50. The 20 is £200 and the 50 is, I think, £450. I've got to be honest, the 50 is pretty good. It's it's competitive with other products at the price. It's well made. It's easy to use. The 20 is a genuine star. For £200, it's a very, very clever product that sounds more than decent on its own. And because I'm diligent and I care about these things, I wandered down to Yamaha, because it was only a few miles from my house, and had a bit of time listening to them as a stereo pair, two 20s paired together running in stereo. £400, that's still less than a MusicCast 50. That was really very, very good indeed. As in, not, oh, this is a useful convenience feature which doesn't make me want to cry when I'm listening to it. It was a genuinely engaging musical performance. And there's clearly some thought gone into this. They're easy to wall mount. There's a bracket mount in the back of them. And I was the 20 in particular is a genuinely impressive product, and it's just good joined up thinking. I really think that Yamaha deserves more credit than perhaps they've received from MusicCast. It's just so ambitious that you don't always see the whole picture. But the fact that they've made sure that all of their products play nice and out, not just in hi-fi, and extending out to some parts of the electric piano division and other things as well. It's really very, very clever. And if you are prepared to go all in, there's things that MusicCast can do which are far and away beyond pretty much anything else from any of the Japanese house brands or Sonos or things like that. There are things that, in terms of its ability to shunt information and material from one device to another, it's the sort of thing that was, if you like, it was vaporware in multi-room builds, custom install builds at thousands and thousands of pounds not that long ago, and they've got it all squared away. So the review for that will be going up reasonably soon. I've given away some of it. I think the 20 is the star of the two. The 50 is capable and a good listen, but were it my money, I'd go for a stereo pair of MusicCast 20s.
Okay, interesting. It is really interesting stuff. I'm looking forward to that review, and obviously I'm looking forward to what Steve makes of the home cinema side as well, because the fact that they are so flexible, and like we've been talking about this for months now on the podcast, but there are members who are downsizing at the minute and going from big systems to 2.1 or sound bars, or they might even be tempted by the 950, the N950 from Samsung, which looks like an absolute killer deal, Steve, this year. I mean, it's a bit of money, but it does absolutely everything out the box. So it looks like the market in those terms is really sort of hotting up now, and there's plenty of options there.
There's. I mean, we discussed quite a few soundbars. I think, was it last week? There's a lot coming out at the moment, and it's covering all your needs very effectively, and delivering what's approaching a level of performance, particularly in the case of the N950, but that's approaching a level of performance that is comparable with someone who goes and buys an AVR and speaker package, which obviously it will be better overall, but will be more expensive, more complicated to install, more hassle, might annoy wives and other partners. But I think the market's realised, that people are doing what you just said, Phil, which is a lot of people, don't have a lot of space, or they're downsizing, or they want something less intrusive and more intuitive to use, and therefore the soundbar market, which has been booming anyway because of the nature of television sound quality in the first place, but the soundbar market has been booming, and now I think it's evolving into something that's becoming all things to all people.
Yeah,
I mean, and it's not just that. I mean, as say, in the time I've been living where I am now, say a name Unity Star has been doing all the donkey work for me. HDMI input on the back of it just turns on when the television turns on, and it's obviously it's not exactly they're not giving it away as a solution, but again, in terms of reduced box counts versus the actual levels of performance on offer, it's staggering.
Recently I've reviewed a couple of wireless stereo speakers, the Ellipsons, the Facet 6B two stereo speakers, and also the Rourke Audio MR1 Mark II, which is again two stereo speakers, and they've got optical digital input, so you can use them not only as a stereo music pair, which sounds fantastic, but also put them on the side of a TV, and you've got an alternative to a soundbar that will sound, frankly, better than most soundbars, because you've got that genuine stereo separation and some quite decent speakers there, big drivers, and it is a viable alternative that I think a lot of people probably don't think of. They tend to think, soundbar TV, but actually, a couple of stereo speakers can make a huge difference to your experience, and also double up nicely for listening to music in the lounge.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same thing with the Klipsch R41s. There are so many options, and they're just so much less intrusive and demanding of your space than full fat AV. Don't want to be a bit of a down here, but it is under fire from all sides, and it's a genuine example of conversions, and probably something that we need to knuckle down and get proper pieces together in the fullness of time. But yeah, it's interesting the number of different ways that it's changing.
Yeah, what I was going to say is not that long ago, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, so not that long ago, I had the dedicated room with a full 5.1 or 7.1 system in there at that point. I also had a full 5.1 system in the living room with the TV setup and all the rest of it. The living room now, that's all gone, and I have no desire to have such a big system in the living room because I have a dedicated room. So if I want to go and watch a movie, I go and use it in there, and I'm lucky to have that because not a lot of people do have that option. The living room for me, obviously I'm swapping TVs in and out all the time and all the rest of it, but even if I wasn't doing that, it's not really, for me, it doesn't warrant the expense and the space to put a 5.1 system in there. So a soundbar or speakers either side of the screen is enough for me in the living room. I don't see, or I don't feel the need to have anything different. What about you, Steve? Because you've obviously got a dedicated room as well, so...
Yeah, no, I'm a bit loath to make the lounge too good because I don't want it. Already the picture quality is superb because you've got OLED in there and Dolby Vision and all these sorts of things going on. If I start adding in, like I was quite tempted by the N950. I thought, this could really go this in the lounge. But I thought if I make it too good, I'll stop going in the home cinema. And I don't want to. There needs to be some sort of jump up in quality, doesn't there, to justify having a dedicated home cinema. If you don't have that jump up in quality, you're going to start using it, and then it's going to become redundant. And I'd loathe it. I mean, I have to say, as impressed as I've been with a lot of the audio solutions I've recently been testing. I was watching Sicario 2: Day of the Soldado a couple of days ago in the home cinema, big screen, Dolby Atmos, and that was a nice reminder of just how good a good sound mix can sound when done properly. Because there's a brilliant bit where Josh Brolin's walking towards camera, so the camera's tracking with him. And he's walking towards a helicopter. The helicopter sound is on the rear speakers, and then it gradually moves to the side speakers and the overhead rears, and then overhead to the front rears. And it's a beautiful piece of sound design. It's absolutely totally directional, but it worked flawlessly. And he thought, yeah, okay, when it's done right, it reminds you of how good it can be. But obviously not everyone is lucky enough to have a dedicated room, and you have to compromise sometimes in life. And the good news is that if that's the situation you're in, you can get some fantastic performing products now, and you don't have to worry about missing out on things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the audio side. Right, Steve, I'm going to ask you a question here. What is the price of the Panasonic UB9000 4K Blu-ray player?
£849.
£849.
That's what you can buy it for in richer sounds.
Now, what's the entry level from Panasonic? Is it the UB300 or something like that?
Yeah, which is a couple £100. You can get the 820 for $349.
Right. So in terms of picture quality, is there any difference when playing a 4K Blu-ray between any of these players?
No. I'm not sure. Having not seen them all and tested them all, I can't say they've all got exactly the same picture features, but I absolutely know that the 820 and the 9000 are identical in terms of their picture quality, performance, features, menu system, everything that's available in that. Absolutely the same. So
the difference in price is how many hundreds of pounds?
£500 difference in price. Now,
right. So where is this? We'll cut this straight to the chase. Where is that £500 going?
Build quality. I mean, the build quality is staggering, better than the Oppos. In fact, it's so well made. So if you're into that, it's a beautifully made piece of kit, the 9000, no question. Got THX certification. How much value you place on that? We're not so sure. And it's got dedicated stereo outputs in RCA phono and also balanced XLR outputs. That's the difference. Oh, and it's got a coaxial digital output as well as an optical. The 820's only got optical.
Have they done anything with the power supplies?
Yes, they have. Yes, the power supplies. I mean, yeah, obviously you're going to a better built, better power supply. You know, it's a better player. Whether you consider it 500 quid better, right, and whether you'd even notice a difference, and I suspect you wouldn't, then that's more a question of personal preference, I suppose.
Yeah. When you say better, as in the components use, the build quality, blah, blah,
yes,
blah.
Everything
we're not
about
talking
it.
About the quality. We're not talking about picture quality. Picture quality is exactly the same across the range.
If you're using HDMI, then I don't think in terms of picture quality, you're not going to see any difference because it's exactly the same inside. I mean,
is there any difference to its 4K scaling of ordinary Blu-rays or anything like that?
No, they use the same chipset, so
it's all
fine. Okay.
And the people that go like, well, it's better, it's a power supply, or it's going to be with the picture. No, it won't. It won't. It's 1 and a 0. Either it's delivering a 1 and 0 or it isn't delivering a 1 and 0. You're not going to get subtle improvements of picture quality. That is just bonkers to think that. You might be able to say that over an analog signal, but not over a digital signal. And I know people could argue about jitter and all sorts of things, but in my experience, and maybe Phil, I don't know what you think, but I've never ever seen a difference.
No, never. And we've done all the testing that we could think of between players in the past. I think Steve spent a couple of days sitting with the Klein on the screen. You were measuring all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
And
with the Cambridge Audio.
That's right. Yeah, it was Cambridge Audio against the Oppo, wasn't it? And so on. Because they were making some claims that they had redesigned the picture quality or something along those lines.
Calibrated output, which rang a few alarm bells, which is why we started testing that to see what they meant by that. Because otherwise they were exactly the same player in terms of what was inside the cabinet.
Yeah. So as long as the manufacturer is not introducing any backdoor processing or anything like that in the out-of-the-box mode, when you put a disc in any player at any price point, it should be showing you the same image quality.
Yes, and which brings an interesting raises an interesting point, which is not so much to do with the 9000 specifically, because like we just said, the 820, for example, uses the same processing and has the same menu features and options as the 9000. So build quality and audio aspects aside, which is really what the 9000's aimed at. I think when it was announced, we first saw it, didn't we, at CES? And at the time we were going like, "Oh, Oppo killer." Obviously we didn't know at that point Oppo had to pull out the market. So 3 months later, I mean, they must have been dancing a jig around at Panasonic because they're going, "Yay, we've got the market to ourselves." Since then, of course, Pioneer have announced a couple of ludicrously priced players. So, but I think if you're the kind of person, and I will call myself that, I'm that kind of person. I like a nicely built player, quiet in operation, super smooth, slick, solid, well-made player, and this ticks all those boxes. So if you like that kind of thing and you've got £849 to spend on a player, I think you'll be very happy. If you want XLR balanced outputs, again, you'll be very happy. Unfortunately, it does not support SACD or DVD audio, which the Oppo does, if you've still got one. So that's a bit of a downside. I think the Pioneers will be addressing that issue, universal players, but the Panasonic doesn't. So it's very much, it's CD and Blu-ray disc XLR outputs. But if that's the kind of thing you want, again, I think you'll be very happy. And you at the demo that they did, weren't they, Phil, for the 9000 a few months ago?
Yeah.
Panasonic seemed, I want my player just to put out what's on the disc. Let the TV or display deal with the signal and let the player play the stuff. And there seems to be an obsession with Panasonic of trying to build players that can help out less capable TVs. And I guess if you've got a less capable TV, that can be a good thing. But there is a lot of features on this player that I probably wouldn't use necessarily. First of all, what's it got that's new? It supports Dolby Vision and HDR10+. And there's a setting in the menu, you can turn it on or off. As a little aside, if you turn Dolby Vision on, which obviously you need to do if you want Dolby Vision, with the Netflix app in the player, when you turn it on, it outputs everything at Dolby Vision. It does a similar annoying thing that the Apple TV was doing initially,
right.
which Panasonic need to sort that out, because it should only be outputting Dolby Vision when it's Dolby Vision content.
Yeah.
If you turn off Dolby Vision, then when you go to the Netflix app, it outputs HDR as HDR and SDR as SDR. But if you turn on Dolby Vision, it outputs everything as Dolby Vision, which is really annoying, and needs to be addressed. So that's something that Panasonic need to work on. Obviously, I couldn't test HDR10 Plus. I haven't got any yet.
So, Steve, just so I get my head right, because this sounds really quite interesting from a reviewer's perspective. So if you put a Dolby Vision disc in, but you don't switch Dolby Vision on,
it outputs
at HDR10.
Yes,
baseline.
It goes to the HDR10 base layer, like a non-Dolby Vision player would do.
Yeah, brilliant. As a tester, that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, for a consumer, it's pointless. But
yeah. No, I mean, as a feature, being able to turn these things on and off is fine, and I like that aspect of it. I'm annoyed that the HDR the Dolby Vision on Netflix
that would annoy me as well. Yeah,
that's annoying. That's annoying. That needs to be fixed. But the actual fact you can turn it on and off is actually a really useful little feature. In terms of other features, I don't think it's entirely new. I think they may have added some of the earlier players, like the 300, 320. I haven't seen a couple recently, but there is a option now where you can select the HDR color gamma output. So if you want HDR VT2020, you can do that. If you've got a projector, for example, and maybe it doesn't handle HDR very well, you can strip out the HDR output, good. SDR VT2020, which is a feature they added to the Oppos as well. That's a nice little feature. Good to have. The one that's new, the one that is sort of interesting, is the HDR display type setting. So you've got a whole list of options: OLED, high luminance projector, basic luminance projector, super high luminance LCD, middle or high luminance LCD, and basic luminance LCD. And you select one of those depending on your display, and then what the player is essentially doing is a bit of tone mapping in the player to output something that's more that the display can handle better.
Display friendly, so the display isn't redoing the tone mapping again.
I guess basically, if you want to output just what's on the disc and not have anything done by the player, your super high luminance LCD is just outputting whatever's on it, be it for 1,000 or 4,000 nits without any manipulation at all, any tone mapping being applied. But if you've got interesting. And I didn't have them at the same time, which would have been very interesting to see what this player was capable of doing as a basic luminance LCD setting on something like the A6200. Now, obviously, no one's going to buy a £279 TV. Otherwise, though, it's largely the same menus that have been available on previous generations of the players. And, it's a really good player. It's a really good player. It's got some great features. It's very flexible in terms of its setup. It's beautifully made. It looks gorgeous. It's whisper quiet in operation. And it's a slick piece of kit. Whether you consider it worth £849 above buying, say, the 820 for £349, that's a big price differential, and you're getting essentially the same thing other than the XR outputs and the build quality. That's, I guess, a personal thing. But I must admit, I do like a nicely made player, and therefore, if it was my money and I was looking for a player, I'd be probably tempted by the UB9000. Although I've got to say, the 820, which has a similar kind of chassis to the previous 900, the UB900, is also an attractive player and a cracking performer for the money. For value terms, no question, 820 is the one to go.
What
for.
About that enormous Pioneer? That looks quite
well. Yeah, they've got two they've announced, haven't they? One which is crazy prices and one which is just utterly insane prices.
Yeah. But it looks like the spiritual successor to the old 747, which was about the best made player of all time. So if you are a sucker for heavy metal, that's got to be up there.
It'll also be, I think, it'll have SACD and DVD audio as well, which the Panasonic doesn't have. So that's something that's still of interest to you. And I know it's a very small segment of the market, but if that's something you want, because that was again one of the Oppos, they were universal players. They could play any disc you put in them. The Panasonic isn't as universal as the Oppos, and that's something where the Oppo still has the edge. And it's something where I guess what Pioneer are looking to do is basically create the ultimate statement in terms of 4K disc players. And looking at the specs they've announced, that's certainly the case, but you are going to pay through the nose for that.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're paying for the build quality, you're paying for isolation and two-layer top panels and aluminium.
No question, it's the heaviest I've ever picked up.
Yeah. You see, that's the type of thing. You know, the 820 would probably suit my needs perfectly. It probably does everything that I would need it to do, but I'd go and buy the 9000. Even though I wouldn't use the audio side, probably. There's just something in me. I'd go and buy the 9000.
It sounds great. I did use the XR outputs because I happened to have a processor at the time that could take them. Sound fantastic, but the reality is that I wouldn't use that most of the time. Well, at all really. I mean, everything goes through HDMI in my system normally. Yeah. That's the reality. But value-wise, no question. The 820 at 8349, that is an absolute cracking buy. Fantastic performance, nice looking chassis and everything. Brilliant. If you've got the dough and you want the best and you want a really, really well-made player that performs superbly and sounds fantastic, then the UB9000 is definitely the one for you. Yeah,
and I've got to say, in terms of I know we mentioned it slightly in your review, but it's something that really interests me is the projector side of thing and using that tone mapping tool to set that for projectors, because that's the one area, especially I'm thinking like the lower end DLP stuff. Where that could become really, really interesting to see what the player does with the tone mapping on that, because those projectors they're more or less Rec 709 in terms of their color gamut, and they're not very good at the way they tone map it. So it'd be interesting to see what the 9000 or even the 820 would do with that with the tone mapping feature. So that's interesting to me. Quite interesting.
Yeah, again, I wasn't in a situation to try it with a one of those cheaper models, but and again, there's a logic to saying, well, would somebody who's buying a cheaper projector or TV buy a really expensive player? But yeah, you're right. If the 820 does it, and that's only £349, then that's something that actually I think could be a really clever buy if you've got a less capable HDR display, because then it helps you out with some seriously good Panasonic processing.
Yep, it does, and Panasonic have always been really good with the processing. Right, we're going to move on. That's it for hardware news this week. We're back in a sec with some movie reviews. Okay, so movie reviews. Well, there's only just the one review. I was hoping there was going to be more reviews, because I was trying to get to the cinema to see a few things, catch up with a few things. I really quite fancy Bad Times at the El Royale. It got quite a good review, 8 from Kaz. He called it. It didn't quite hit the notes of Tarantino's stuff, but along similar lines. So that's got me interested. I quite fancy going to go and see that. So I'm going to go and see that this week. But I did go and see First Man, which we alluded to last week. Obviously, our review is now a week late. I didn't see it in IMAX in the end.
Oh.
I didn't see it till Tuesday night, actually. I was going to go on the Friday, and things happened, and I never got there. And then I decided I can't be bothered by IMAX. I'll just go and see it on a normal screen. I know Steve's going to wax lyrical about this film. I'm not. So, Steve, you go first.
Yeah, okay. I did see it in IMAX. And it's the first time I've been to IMAX screening for a long time. And I really loved it. I've got to say, just off nothing to do with First Man, but God, I mean, I'm going to be going to that cinema in Cardiff a lot more, because the IMAX experience was so much better, and it was incredibly cheaper than going to the ordinary Odeon in Bath, significantly cheaper as well, which is another reason for going. Basically, even though it's a bit of a further drive, the quality of the presentation was superb. The sound quality, the screen, everything is just awesome. So that's me done. Anything coming out that's going to be a big IMAX release, I'm definitely going there. Seeing First Man in IMAX. Now, the film was shot in a number of different formats. So the early stuff when he's working as a test pilot, that's 16mm, and then it moves to 35mm when he's doing Gemini. And then when he steps out onto the moon, that switches to IMAX cameras.
I'm so happy you said Gemini there, because that was the one thing that was winding me up in the film.
Gemini.
That's
how Americans pronounce Gemini.
Yeah, I know.
So, and although that sequence isn't that long in the film, the level of detail that suddenly hits you in an IMAX screen is absolutely breathtaking. And obviously, I like that idea because it's an artistic choice. I really can't stand it when someone like Nolan is cutting between different formats, 35mm and IMAX, between the same scene from cut to cut, and he constantly changes aspect ratio. That just makes no sense. That's just a gimmick. But this seems to me like an artistic choice, which is to give you a feeling that you're on the moon with Armstrong, and by having this incredible level of detail in the image, which is massively noticeable going from 35mm up to the full IMAX experience. For me, I'm a space nut. I've been a space nut since I was a kid, since the days of Apollo, and I know a lot about it, and I could absolutely say this film is unbelievably accurate. And it's the first, and I've seen every space film ever made, it's the first film that has made you realize what it must have actually been like to be inside those ships. There's at least 3 sequences. The opening sequence is absolutely, I think, breathtaking. I mean, it's an incredible sequence where he's flying the X-15 rocket plane. That is, you're in that plane with him. The noise, the IMAX sound system, the images, you absolutely, it's breathtaking filmmaking, in my opinion. And then there's a similar sequence with Gemini, where they have a problem with the stuck thruster. Again, it puts you in that spaceship. There's bits when they're about to do the launch of the Saturn V. You're looking around and you're thinking like this tin can made with city technology. You're thinking like, bloody hell.
The one thing that kept going through my mind, Steve, and it was so funny, was I sitting there watching this stuff, and I'm saying to myself, your phone in your pocket's got more processing power than everything.
Than that spaceship, way more. The sequence with the Apollo 1 fire is done brilliantly as well. I think that it was a consummate piece of filmmaking that really, really gave you a first-hand experience of what it must have been like to be an Apollo astronaut at that time. The dangers involved, the risks they were taking, the achievement of getting to the moon. I unfortunately, because it's really about Armstrong's story as much as anything, which is a sensible idea, because he happened, by chance, was involved in a number of key incidents that led to the moon landing, particularly the Gemini mission, which he basically saved. And I think if that had gone disastrously wrong, that could have killed them, easily could have killed both of them. That could have really put the kibosh on the Apollo program. So he saved it to a degree, but also he was also the guy that made the moon landing. It's his story as well. So there's a lot of family stuff that I'm not that interested in, if I'm being honest. I'm more interested in the Apollo missions and the getting to the moon. I would have rather just focused on that if it had been my film. But I understand what they were trying to do, and also to show the personal toll it takes on the astronauts and their personal lives and their wives and what they have to put up with and that kind of thing. For me, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I just wish there'd been a bit more about the moon landings and a bit less about the family stuff.
This is where I'm going to come in, because this was my problem with the film. My problem with the film was the pacing. And the direction that they took with it, because the technical stuff, absolutely, all the stuff that you just mentioned about sitting in the spaceships is about to take off, the feeling of dread and all the rest of it. Because the problem with this is, what the ending's going to be. It's a bit like a film about the Titanic or whatever. You know what your end goal is going to be here, and it's sense of drama and sense of tension and all the rest of it, peril and stuff. It's not really there, because the guy survives because he walks on the moon, but that was all done really quite well, and the sequences there, and I think they used some of the original Saturn V film as well in there for the liftoff and so on of the Apollo 11.
I'm not sure whether that was original footage or recreated to look like original footage.
If it was done flawlessly. Really that,
because there were shots I'd never seen, and I've seen most of the footage. So there's some beautiful shots of the light of it going through the clouds and stuff that was just gorgeous, too beautiful to be stock footage. It had to be corrected, but they absolutely. Some of this photography was fantastic.
Now I get that this is not a historical film. It's not a documentary, although it's shot in a documentary style with shaky cams and that kind of thing. And like you say, 16mm to start with, then it went up to 35mm, then 70mm IMAX. So from a technical point of view, I didn't have that many issues with it. I expect grain to be there. I expect that we would shoot it like it would look in the 60s and so on. I had no issues with that whatsoever. My issue was the pacing, and my issue was the fact that if you're going to do Armstrong's story the way that they set out to do it, and this is without any spoilers, the most interesting part for me was the bit where the film ended. Because the film ended just as it was going to get interesting for a guy like him, with his personality, the way that he deals with being in the public and all the rest of it. Suddenly he's the most famous person on the planet. The interesting story for me was where the film finished. If they were going to go the full route of this is Armstrong's story and this is what the guy's like and this is the personal disasters that he's had in his life, this is the mental anguish that the guy has for lost child and all the rest of it, and if they're going down that route, which is the route that they go with this film, so it affects the pacing, because it doesn't know if it wants to be one thing or the other to me at some points. It wants to be this historically accurate depiction of what actually happened, and then this guy's personal story, which again has been dramatized somewhat for the big screen, because again, it's not a documentary. For me, I don't know about you, Steve, because you know a lot more about the subject than I do, but for me, the whole thing, that him walking on the moon and then becoming the most famous person on the planet for doing that, that's the interesting story. How did he cope with that? How did his family cope with that? You know, because he actually moved into the middle of nowhere, didn't he? Because he wanted to get away from it all. He never did any TV interviews. He never got involved with any of the publicity thing. Whereas Buzz Aldrin, who I thought wasn't really treated very fairly in this film.
He was portrayed as a bit of a dick in the film. I don't know how accurate that is.
I don't know how accurate that is.
I know he wasn't that popular. Certainly, I know that at the time he was considered to be a bit boring and a bit intense. Other astronauts would say, like, don't get sit next to him a meal because he'll start talking about rendezvous and rockets trajectories, and it's really boring. So they used to call him Dr. Rendezvous. But yeah, he's made out to be a real dick in the film. And I'm not sure that's strictly fair on Buzz.
To me, it's made to be quite insensitive, and I thought, is that accurate or not? But anyway, for me, I don't know if you agree with me, Steve, but that was a far more interesting story. So actually, the story that they told was interesting up to the point where it was going to get really interesting, and the film ended. And it had these nice sections where I think you could have had a standalone film about the Apollo missions and leading up to the Apollo missions, and a separate story on him, and it didn't quite know where it wanted to be. Yeah, for me,
it tried to be. Yeah, it tried to do. It's trying to hang its story on Armstrong, and Armstrong, by his own admission, not the most interesting person. I mean, Gosling plays it flat, but that's because that's what Armstrong was like. I mean, he literally did crash the LLRV, the device they used to practice landing on the moon, which is basically a giant rocket engine, giant jet engine, facing downwards, and you're controlling it, and he crashes it. He went straight into the office afterwards and didn't even tell him when he'd had an accident. Actually, the film's not accurate. They got scratches on his face. He didn't have any markings on his face. He bit his tongue, but he didn't have any physical. You couldn't tell he'd been in a crash. Didn't even tell anyone. It was just like he was so calm, so cool, so level, so test pilot, that he was just, and unfortunately that doesn't make for a very interesting protagonist, because he almost never reacts to anything. It might be accurate historically, but it doesn't make for an interesting protagonist. For me, that the flaws in the film really are inherently because it's trying to pin lunar landing on the back of Armstrong's story. And you're right, Phil, to a certain extent. The interesting bit is the bit afterwards from the Armstrong perspective. The interesting bit is, how do you deal with being, because in 1,000 years' time, no one's going to remember us. No one's going to remember anything. The only thing they're going to remember in 1,000 years' time is that was when human beings first set foot on another celestial body. They'll still remember
for yourself, mate.
Name. Armstrong will be remembered in 1,000 years when the rest of us are long since forgotten.
I don't know.
That's got to be a strange thing to think, that you're that's the person you are. Because at the end of the day, he always said, I'm just happy to be the guy that got out. But it was 400,000 people that got me there that were in the struggle. And so if you want to watch something about the Apollo missions, watch HBO's series From the Earth to the Moon, which covers the whole thing from beginning to end, and it's absolutely brilliant in 12 parts. That's one you want to watch. But like I say, this as a cinema experience, and for putting you inside the spaceship, some of that stuff was absolutely breathtaking.
I like the fact that they were going with Armstrong, because the one thing that this film is not is it's not an American flag waving heroic, aren't we the best type of vibe about it, which sometimes these films fall into that aspect. Aren't America great? We got to the moon and all this. It's none of that's in there. And I like the fact that they show Armstrong as a normal guy, as a normal human being. He's not a hero. He's just very, very good, very, very brave. That was another thing that went through my head. Can you imagine what health and safety would be like nowadays, with some of the things that they got up to? Like you say, with flying about on jet engines and then straight back in the office when you crash it and stuff like that. I liked it from that perspective. What disappointed me was the pacing wasn't right, and they should have continued on, because that is the most important thing. He becomes the most famous person on the planet, and we don't get any of that story, and that's disappointing for me.
I don't have a problem with the pacing. I think they probably, for me, they kind of paced it by starting with the X-15 and ending with the lunar landing. They've covered the key aspects of the program and the mission and his involvement in it. I mean, they could have started with him as a kid learning to fly, or they could have gone on to him ending up as a teacher. I know. So, in some respects, the aftermath becomes anticlimactic, as it was with the missions, because the public interest fell off like a cliff after Apollo 11. Yeah. People just got bored of it after that.
But that's another thing, right? You become the most famous man on the planet. You've done the unthinkable. What now?
Yeah, well, yeah. What do you do after you've walked on the moon?
Yeah, what now? Yeah. What do you do? To me, that's really
well.
interesting.
Buzz would be a more interesting character in that sense then, because he turned to alcoholism and he struggled. He struggled with being the second man on the moon, because he desperately wanted to be the first. And they don't cover that in this film, but there was a whole thing going on about who got out of the lunar module first. And Buzz really, really wanted to be the first one out, and struggled for a long time afterwards to deal with not being the first guy on the moon. Obviously, he's now the only first guy on the moon that's still alive, so he won that particular.
Is Edward Collins still alive?
Ed Collins is still alive, yeah. No, Mike Collins, you mean?
Mike Collins.
There's 4 moonwalkers left: Dave Scott, Buzz Aldrin, Harrison Schmitt, and Ed Mitchell. Ed Mitchell? No, he died. Charlie Rose. They're the 4 that are left, but soon they'll be gone. They're in their 80s now, and it's really sad that what it made me think of when I'm watching it, I thought, God, there was an amazing time in the 60s, wasn't there? There was so much hope, and from Kennedy's speech in 1961, when they'd had all of 15 minutes in space, 8 years later, standing on the surface of the moon. And that was with the fire in 67, when they had to almost go back to the drawing board in terms of designing the spaceship. So, what an achievement. Now, America can't even put a man in space. There's no manned space mission, a space program at the moment. And you've got, Trump, not Kennedy, but Trump in the White House. And it's kind of like, God, we've fallen a long way, haven't we? We really have as a species.
Yeah. So, wrapping up on First Man, I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10.
I'll give it 9, and that's from the perspective of somebody who's really into this. So, my view is slightly skewed.
Yeah. Seen the trailers for the film coming out this week, Bohemian Rhapsody. I was really skeptical when I saw this was in production and all the rest of it. However, having seen the trailers, I might go and see it.
I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I might go and see it because I'm thinking.
It opens on Wednesday, so I'll go and see either Wednesday or Thursday before next week's podcast. But,
Yeah, I think I will as well. I had no interest in it, but having seen the trailers, I'm thinking actually this might actually be quite good. I didn't realise it was what's his face that was playing Freddie.
Yeah, it's the guy from Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot, yeah. I didn't realise it was him.
The trailer was on the IMAX screen before First Man, and when you get the Wembley Stadium shots from Live Aid, it was
that looked phenomenal, didn't it? Yeah, really good. So it'll obviously be a turkey, but I'm going to go and see it anyway. I can't believe how much... We mentioned this last week. Have you seen how many adverts are running for Hunter Killer at the minute?
There are so many.
TV, saturation on TV.
Yeah. There's so many. Obviously, Twitter. Most of the videos start with a thing for that, and it would appear that it's just blanket coverage, because sometimes it's really not the time to be showing ships blowing each other to pieces. There was one of the Reuters articles was about a ship in the current Japanese Navy, and it's the first one where it has a significant proportion of female crew. It's like, have a look at the experiences of the women in the Japanese Navy, and then it cuts to a trailer of Hunter Killer, and the ship just blows up, and it's like, that what? It's like, oh right, no, the video hasn't started yet, but just for a tenth of a second, it's like, holy shit, the Japanese are taking this very seriously. So yeah, it's not all considered coverage. It's just blanket, wall to wall.
I'm quite tempted to go and see it just to see how big a turkey it actually is, to be honest. Just the amount of coverage it's getting. But anyway, Bohemian Rhapsody's out this week. So is Hunter Killer, if you're interested.
Is Hunter Killer actually out this week? I thought it was out last week.
Is it this week or is it last week?
I think it was.
Actually, it's today as we record, so it's last week.
I would know, given its blanket coverage, but I've got no interest in it.
Yeah, okay. Right, so that's the cinema coverage. Blu-ray releases, Steve.
Yeah, not a massive amount. There's Ocean's 8, which you saw at the cinema, I believe, Phil, and I saw on disc a few weeks ago. It's an Ocean's movie, usual thing. Perfectly entertaining, but
until what's his face turns up.
James Corden turns up.
Jesus.
Why does that guy keep getting work? I just don't understand. It's perfectly entertaining, but did we need it? Not really.
No.
Work crying out for a female version of Ocean's 11? Not really. No. Good cast, and some good performances.
It's quite entertaining, but the number of plot holes. I mean, you expect plot holes in heist movies, but all these films do have a lot hanging on them, and there's a lot of coincidence and things like that. Well, would that have worked? That sounds unlikely. But yeah, if you don't think about it too much, it's an entertaining hour and 45 minutes, and then you're done. We also got Hurricane, which is a British movie about the Hurricane fighter plane.
I know little about it other than the guy who's in it is the guy that plays Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones. But if you're into World War II aircraft, it could be interesting. There's Xtro, which I have seen as a kid. It was one of those films that came out in the early 80s. It's the one that famously where the woman gives birth to a fully grown man.
And what?
Basically, yeah, seriously, it's as weird as it sounds. She gets impregnated by an alien and gives birth to an alien, and then he turns into it's like E.T. with teeth, basically, and some weird stuff. It's a strange movie. It was a strange movie in 81 or 83, I think, when it came out, 82, 83, and it hasn't got any less strange with age. But if that's something you're into, weird early 80s horror movies, British made as well, the next show is out. And also, speaking of horror films, and a lot better, Night of the Demon, which is obviously famously the one that's a film that Kate Bush sampled with it's coming, it's in the trees from the beginning of Hounds of Love. It's a great movie. I really enjoy it. My complaint is that unfortunately it does play there actually is a demon at the end, and the demon looks a bit crap. But I think if they just played it with, it could have been a demon, or it could have been just in the guy's head. It would have been a more interesting story. But it's still a classic horror film from the 50s. So worth checking out if you haven't got it.
Okay, 4K Blu-ray.
4K Ocean's 8 is also out on 4K disc, and coming out Cabin in the Woods is coming out as well this week on 4K disc, which came out in the States a year ago. But those are the two releases this week. But there's also been quite a few announcements in terms of John Carpenter movies, obviously tying in partly with Halloween, but there's been a whole bunch of his films have been restored at 4K and have new 4K releases coming out. So we've got box sets for Escape from New York, that's in November, and then at the end of October we've got The Fog and They Live. And then also, probably, it hasn't been announced yet, but I know they've done the restoration and it's coming out on Blu-ray, so I'm sure there'll be a 4K disc as well of Prince of Darkness. That'll be at the end of November. So there's 4 Carpenter movies planned to come out. This is UK releases with Studio Canal, all of them special editions with lots of extras and things like that, which look quite cool. I'll probably get all of those. Also, there's just been released Halloween, obviously in time for Halloween, and also in time for the new sequel that's coming out. And released in the States, but not in the UK, but have got it, is Christine as well. John Carpenter's film of Stephen King's Christine. So there's quite a few Carpenter movies hitting 4K all around about the same time. So
on a John Carpenter note, whilst I remember, briefly taking you out of films, Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails and Atticus Ross, who worked together to have done the soundtrack for Social Network, Gone Girl, things like that, they've reworked the Halloween theme tune. It's on the various streaming services, and it's well worth a listen. I think they've done a nice job. John Carpenter also thinks they've done quite a nice job as well. So that's cool. reasonable credit. It's just one track, 7 minutes, quite entertaining.
I've liked the previous stuff. I'm going to have a listen to that.
Good. So yeah, wonderful news. Lots and lots of his stuff coming out on disc. Pretty expensive.
Mark's a bit of a Carpenter fan as well, aren't you, Mark?
Yep.
What's your favourite John Carpenter film then, Mark?
Well, it have to be The Thing. I just absolutely love that film, but I do have a real soft spot for Prince of Darkness as well. So that's why when I heard this, it's the first time I've really been tempted to jump on the 4K Blu-ray bandwagon. And in particular, sucker for it. I was trying to get away from physical mediums, but the new artwork for these 4K Blu-rays by Matt Ferguson looks fantastic as well. The cover for They Live is just absolutely perfect.
That's a very that's a nice little minor classic from Carpenter. I like They Live. I love Escape from New York. It's got the greatest line in cinema history.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I have come to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I am all out of bubblegum.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, for me, soft spot for the original Assault on Precinct 13. I love that film. Absolutely love it. It's one of those ones where it doesn't overstay its welcome, and in light of what we were talking last podcast about bloated film budgets, it cost $100,000 to make. Although that said, it didn't necessarily make all of that back, but
it did. It did make its money back. It did very well, and it's a brilliant remake of Rio Bravo as well. Yeah. It's a fantastic little film.
I love the fact that in that film, the kind of gang members come across like zombies.
Yes.
You know, towards the end, they just kind of shuffle
keep coming, don't they? Like a wave of bodies.
Yeah. It's essentially like a zombie film. They've just decided, we'll make it with gang members.
It also has that shocking killing at the beginning, which really sets the tone for the rest of the movie.
Oh yeah, and it was probably one of the first films where you've got kind of two protagonists at the center of it all, but the kind of the cop is black and then the criminal is white. You know, for the time, that was quite a big thing.
And having a black protagonist, apart from Night of the Living Dead, it was pretty unusual back then. Those days, to even that was still a rarity in the early 70s.
Yeah.
You're right. It's a great film. I love it. Also, love
and let's not forget that then Bomb the Bass took the overly sort of
thing. Yeah. Well, actually, there was quite a few hip hop artists took that.
But more specifically, that then got used in one of the greatest early 90s computer games going, Xenon 2. So, you know, it's just the tune that keeps on giving, frankly.
Written by John Carpenter, he's a talented guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just going to mention, he released an album, was it 3 years ago now?
Yeah. Not all of it was that good, but the first track, what a thing. Proper size pair of speakers for that.
What was it called again?
That's a damn good question. Hang on. I've got it all.
Is it Lost something?
Lost, yes, it is something along those
lines. Isn't there a John Carpenter music release with this 4K Blu-ray box set or something?
I think there might be. They look like they're pretty good value. They're $29.99, but you get a lot for your cash.
Yeah.
Lost themes and Vortex, the opening track. What a thing! That's music to drive around at night to. Provided you're not paranoid.
That he didn't write the music for the thing, and yet Ennio Morricone basically copied John Carpenter's style for the music. So I thought for years he did write the music. I've kind of forgotten it was Ennio Morricone, and then I thought, oh yeah, it was Ennio Morricone. But he does a John Carpenter style main theme. Maybe Carpenter was involved because it does sound so much like Carpenter. I think he must have had a hand in it slightly, but I guess he was so busy making the film that he didn't have time to do the full soundtrack, but to score it. But Escape from New York, I love, even though it's very much a film of its time, back when New York was a complete shithole, and it's set in the distant future of 1997. And I absolutely love Big Trouble in Little China as well, just because the lead is a complete idiot. Kurt Russell's lead character is a complete knob, and the real lead is actually the Asian guy. But so it kind of subverts expectations in much the same way as they did perhaps with Storm Precinct 13. He had a fantastic run of really, really great movies until I guess the late 80s, for about 15 years. I mean, even in his student film Dark Star, when they added bits to it, make it into a feature-length feature. I really love Dark Star. It's really funny in places.
At university, we always used to confuse that. It became an in-joke that did often confuse other people because we were enormous fans of Escape from New York. You'd meet each other, it's like, oh, I thought you were dead. Which tends to confuse people when they haven't watched the film as recent issue.
Donald Pleasance is the least convincing president since Donald Trump.
Maybe there's a lesson here. Presidents should not be called Donald. Although I do like his escape egg. That's very cool.
Yeah. The way the budget was so tight, they couldn't show the plane crashing, so you just saw this really crap computer. It was not even computer generated. Obviously, it was animated. Boom. Also, the effects were done by James Cameron, and again, they wanted to show a computer generated image of the view from the glider as he glides into the World Trade Center where he lands, and so they didn't have any money for that, obviously. So what Cameron did was he made models of New York in black cardboard, painted it black, painted on white grids on the buildings, and filmed that. Really clever.
It's the mother of invention, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like the cut scene from Aliens with the sentry guns. What's actually there and what you think you see are two wildly different things. It's very, very cleverly done.
The genius of editing, isn't it? You've got four guys in suits, but you can make them look like hundreds.
Yeah, the genius of editing. It's how I make the podcast sound interesting. And on that bombshell, that's it for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
I've never been to Amsterdam.
Ed Selley.
I want to eat your whole head.
And Mark Botwright.
Only from the neck up.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums.com for the latest reviews, news and videos, and of course, leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.